5 hours after leaving base camp and 2,000 feet higher on the mountain, the team reaches Camp 1 above the icefall. But they're not alone for long.
At Camp 1, we set up our tents. We had a beautiful spot, and 24 hours later, we had a Russian team camp about 30 feet away from us, and a Iranian team camp another 20 feet away from us, and it sort of shocked us that people would want to crowd us like that. And then you've got issues of hygiene, where people are going to the bathroom, what they're doing with their pee bottles.
Perhaps because of the bad hygiene at Camp 1, overnight, Peter Hillary becomes dangerously ill. It takes on a whole new dimension at 19,800 feet. He's been repeatedly out of the tent, throwing up all his fluids, cared for by cameraman Michael Graver.
I don't know how many times I went up to vomit. It sounded like it was all dry heaves. I must admit, when I called out to you, I was pretty scared. Yeah. Oh, f***ing A. Anyone would be. Yeah, we'll get you through this. This isn't bad. This is nothing. Yeah. I'll tell you what bad is. Bad is running out of film. I just think, Pete, if I go down, have a day or two resting and sort of recovering.
How's your stomach feeling? Kind of on the verge.
Very delicate.
Yeah.
Who am I going to tease now? The lowest common denominator is leaving Camp 1, my God. You put me in a bad position.
I'm sorry.
Peter Hillary descends to base camp where he can recover quickly at lower altitude. But there's worry that he'll fall too far behind in the most critical step in climbing Mount Everest, adjusting to high altitude. Because Everest is so high, it takes up to 2 months for climbers' bodies to get used to the thin air on Everest's higher slopes. This means they ascend to Camp 1 and spend a night or two before continuing to Camp 2. After several days' rest, they move up for a night at Camp 3. From here, they descend all the way to base camp again to recuperate before making their final push back up the mountain to the summit. Brent Bishop and expedition leader Pete Athens continue higher into the Western Cwm.
The Western Cwm is a valley that is formed by Everest, the west shoulder of Everest, Lhotse, and Nuptse. Sometimes it's referred to as the Valley of Silence. We're up here at above 20,000 feet, and you'd think that it'd be really cold, but it's going to be about 90 plus degrees in the sun up here, and it's just one big reflecting oven. It's really hot.
These three guys are three of our climbing Sherpas. They've been taking up things for our camp: tents, sleeping bags, food, fuel. They're just saying that there's not too much wind up there. They set up 2 great tents for us. They're on their way down because they've been so fast.
It's rush hour on Everest, and 100 Sherpas truck food and equipment up to Camp 2 from base.
We Sherpas, having lived at high altitudes for so many generations, are able to adapt to this high altitude better than any other humans in the world. So therefore, we're able to climb easier.
We're born here, we're grown up here, this is our land, this is our place, so it's pretty natural for us. From Camp 2 to base, each Sherpa does it 15 to 20 times, and from Camp 2 to South Col, each Sherpa does it around 10 times.
You will never see a Sherpa climbing this mountain out of pleasure. They climb because it's their livelihood.
It is very difficult for my children when I'm away. I'm usually away for several months. My older son, Pemba, is 5 and Pasang is 4. Hey, Pemba, the man asked you, is it difficult for you when I'm away from home?
There's a lot of money involved in this. It's high stakes, and it's worth it for them. A lot of Sherpas have made a lot of money. They own property, and they're able to send their children to school in Kathmandu.
Sherpas are the unsung heroes of mountaineering. Sometimes I feel disappointed when people write books and they say, oh, I got to the summit and it's all about them. And I got to the summit with 5 Sherpas. It's like, okay, how about having some names and where they're from, their age, maybe a little bit about their character, because it's all teamwork.
They're in one of the highest glacial valleys in the world, transected by massive lateral crevasses. But it's the higher mountain where teamwork will mean the difference between success and failure.
This year at Camp 2, we've got approximately 6 expeditions, a guided group that's being run by guys from New Zealand. There's a group of Korean climbers who are up slightly above that, and then another group of Americans above that, and I think we're going to see more people moving in here, carving out their presence.
Today, there are many voices on the mountain, and for most, climbing Everest has been a lifelong dream.
Why'd I come here to Everest? Well, Mount Everest is really the ultimate for somebody like myself. When you come here, the assumption is that you've already put in the hours, you have the technical experience, you have the vertical ice experience, you know how to travel on a glacier.
Everest can also attract climbers with less experience and uncertain objectives.
It's not 100% clear why I'm here. I think I found myself with too much time on my hands. I sold my company last year. I am 51 years old, and I'm just gonna see how far I get. The cook today told me that if I really wanted to do Everest, for sure, I should just pay a little extra and get me 2 extra Sherpas. They'll drag me up there. Basically you can buy anything. You can buy going to the Mir station. In fact, I'm considering doing that next.
235 miles below Mir, Brent Bishop and Pete Athens leave Camp 2. Unlike most climbers who take the southeast ridge route, they plan to climb the more technically difficult west ridge to the summit.
This route scares me. It's a dangerous route, and we're off by ourselves, so that if things go wrong, we might as well be a long way away. Between the fear and the workload and what lies ahead and the duration of what lies ahead, it's intimidating.
In 1963, 2 Americans, Willie Unsold and Tom Hornbein, made mountaineering history by pioneering a route up Everest's daunting West Ridge. Brent's father climbed high on the West Ridge, but he reached the summit by the traditional Southeast Ridge route. For Brent, climbing the West Ridge will fulfill his dream of attempting Everest the way his father did, as an explorer approaching the unknown.
When Willie Unsold and Tom Hornbein did it 40 years ago, it was the most significant American achievement in the Himalayas and still remains that today. The West Ridge has only been climbed 6 times. It's had 40 attempts on it, and 23 people have been killed on it.
Because they're on their own, they have to do triple the work, picking a route, fixing their own lines, and carrying all their gear.
Pete's about to take one of the lines, they're 100 meters each, and run it out and put in another anchor. Hey, Pete?
Yeah.
You live?
Yeah, I'm hooked in.
Okay. Pete clipped the rope through our high point, through a sling and a carabiner and a good ice crew. And I'm paying the rope out to him. I'm belaying him so that if he falls, I can lock this belay device down and stop his fall.
They're headed to a distant couloir at 24,000 feet, where they'll put in their next camp.
Those early teams, Ed Hillary, that American team from '63, they came up here and they, it just sort of, here was Everest in front of them and they had to figure it out. Now you pay your $65,000 and you clip into the lines, and still it's an unbelievable thing to do, but you're not figuring it out. We've hauled all these lines up to our high point right now, and each one of these probably weighs about 20 pounds because they're 100 meters, and it's a lot of hauling gear, a lot of fixing lines, a lot of up and down. Leaning over your tools, just gasping for air, going, Christ, there's nothing to breathe up here. When you're looking at big mountains, one of the biggest things is putting the route in, fixing the lines. And, you know, people are connecting the dots on the other route, and this to me seems like a lot more suffering and a lot more work, which there's something gratifying about it because we're either gonna succeed together or we're gonna fail together, but it's not gonna be from lack of effort, that's for certain.
Peter Hillary tried the West Ridge once, years ago, but the climb was so devastating, he'll never go back.
We attempted the West Ridge back in 1984. I was a very ambitious young alpinist. I read the book about Hornbein and Unsol heading up there all alone on this massive, steep, difficult and very elegant ridge. And I thought, that's the way I want to go. And suddenly the weather at 27,000 feet started changing. Strong winds started blowing in on us. So 4 of us turned around to start coming down. And sadly, one of them tripped. We were all soloing, just with our axes and our crampons on our boots. And he just flew past my shoulder. I was very lucky he didn't hit me, in fact. But there was nothing we could do for him. I soloed down the north face alone. I went down, I don't know, about 1,500 feet to where his body stopped. And I just hoped that maybe he had survived. And I kept calling out to him, but there was no movement. And when I got there, it was quite clear that Craig Knottle was dead. So I turned around to start coming back up again. And then, to my absolute horror, I heard this sort of thudding sound, a bit like, you know, when stones skip across the water. And I looked up, and my great old climbing buddy, Fred from Queensland, Australia, was just flying through the air at 80 miles an hour. And he just skipped past me and disappeared down the north face. You can really start to feel that this great inanimate block of rock and ice maybe isn't inanimate, and maybe it's not all that nice. And I sort of found myself looking around and thinking, my God, is it after me too?
Pete and I have already had 8 forays on the West Ridge trying to get to 24,000 feet, fixing our own lines, carrying loads, and hauling gear up there. So the workload is just breaking me down. I mean, every day getting up and working hard, and it's taking its toll on my body.
Pete Athens has his own form of suffering to endure. Camp 2 cuisine has taken its toll on his stomach.
I couldn't walk 10 feet without stopping today, and just had a stomach still growling, still having some problems. So just really bad cramps. Just had to stop 3-4 times and just lost all my fluids. Not a very exciting day. Actually, not a very good day at all. But sometimes it's like that. You have to take them all as they come. It's just punishment, you know, it's just pain. And sometimes you just keep with it, and sometimes you work through it. And at times I felt like I was. And then it would just come back.
Even the best in the world can have bad days on Everest. At high altitude, if you don't bounce back, you're left vulnerable.